for over a century, powering innovation and shaping the way we live, work, and thrive. In the early days of electrification, we made electricity safe and ready for modern life, pioneering technology that redefined what's possible. With the first arcless fuse by Square D, Murlin-Geron's high-voltage circuit breakers, and the first contactor by Telemecanique, we turned power into progress, lighting up communities, factories, and entire cities. As computing emerged, we made it easier to program and control industrial systems. The first programmable logic controller by Modicon, the first distributed control system by Foxborough, and the first 3D plant design software from Aviva all pioneered modern automation, enabling mass production. By the 1980s, technology became part of everyday life. OSI Soft's Pi system empowered plant operators with easy access to their data. CPAM 2000 was the first medium-voltage digital protection relay, offering better speed, precision, and safety. ProFace's graphic touchscreen made industrial control intuitive, and APC protected our digital lives with Smart UPS, the first single-phase UPS. The new millennium brought advanced connectivity to industrial and energy systems. Resource Advisor became the first energy ERP tool, and ETAP's Grid Suite simulated and analyzed energy systems in real time. Wonderware's system platform unified visualization, supervision, and execution for industrial control systems, and EcoStructure, one of the first IoT platforms, made energy visible and systems interoperable across industries. In the 2010s, our innovation transformed traditional infrastructure into intelligent, connected ecosystems. Masterpact MTZ brought full digital micrologic to air circuit breakers, and Motivair's Chill Door brought high-density server cooling. Planon's cloud-based workspace management system transformed building operations, and PowerTag, the world's smallest energy sensor, boosted productivity across sectors. Today, energy technology can sense, think, and act. We are transforming energy management and industrial automation with AI-embedded, software-defined architectures for every sector. Automation Expert is the first open, software-defined automation solution. RM AirSet SF6 free switchgear runs on pure air for increased sustainability, and Wiser Home optimizes energy use from appliances to EV chargers. Our fully reimagined EcoStructure architecture brings new levels of energy and industrial intelligence to onboard devices, operate edge control, and optimize it all with software and services. From the first fuse to powering the future of quantum computing, Schneider Electric is, and always has been, your energy technology partner.
Tudo começou com uma pequena...
Everything began with a small butcher's door over 70 years ago. It wasn't luck, neither luck. Believing in simple things, to discomplicate, make it better all the time. Each door came with the work of many people. People from the factory, from the countryside, from the market. That's how JBS brings quality to your table. Opening doors with who grows side by side with us. And so we are in over 5 continents without ever forgetting our origin. That small door where everything began, which is because the key to every door is the same: hard work, humbleness, and simplicity. Come in, JBS. We feed a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, be very welcome. I'm Viviane Costa, journalist, and it's an honor to be with you in this event. Reminding there will be simultaneous translation, and you can retrieve your equipment at the entry of this room. And also we'll have transmission in Portuguese and English by our YouTube channel at the National Industry Confederation. We'll now watch the institutional video from CNI, our National Confederation of the Industry. The industry is present, its innovation, It's in everything, everywhere, in each corner of the country, creating, generating, caring, making us happy. It's in the game, in the ball, at the table, at school, in the environment, the future that smiles to us. It's present in our lives for everyone, day by day. Industry, we make the industry, we create the industry. Industry is ours, industry is more, industry is for us. Industry is us who make, industry is for us, industry is more, industry is for us. Industry is we who make, it's industry creates, industry is more. Be all very welcome in person and the ones following us by the CNI YouTube channel to the Post-COP30 event, the role of industry in the climate agenda held by the National Industry Confederation and this Industry Social Service, SESI, and the National Industrial Learning Service, SENAI, and has the goal to strengthen visibility of the actions of the Brazilian industry in the environment and sustainability beyond building a joint position from the sector for COP31. At COP, CNI has a strategic role in the articulation and implementation of the environmental and climate agendas discussed globally. With the main representative of the Brazilian industrial sector, CNI acts to transform the commitments taken on into concrete initiatives, viable, adapted to international demands and the alignment with sustainable practices. We have entrepreneur leadership specialists at this event, representatives from the government to debate the unfoldings of COP30 held in Belém in the state of Pará and to promote strategic alignment of the sector for COP31 that will be held in Ankara, Turkey. And this seminar has the following sponsors that made this event feasible. Gold category, JBS and Schneider Electric. Silver category, National Association of the Makers of Vehicles, Anfavia. Carlin Measures ExxonMobil. CPF Energy, Brazilian Institute of Oil, Gas and Biofuels, IBP. Latam Airlines, MBRF. PepsiCo, Suzano, and Syngenta. The bronze category, Salem EG, Albras Aluminum, Brazilian Aluminum, Ambev, Braskem, Hydro, Brazilian Institute of Mining, IBRAM, Itaúsa, and Vale. We also have the following institutional support. Brazilian Association of Air Energy, AB Eólica, NONCHOM, American Chamber of Commerce, Arab Brazilian Commerce Chamber, First Abu Dhabi Bank, Federation of the Industry of the State of Pará, Institute Amazonia Plus 21. To begin our program, we'll invite for the opening panel, President of the Federation of the Industries of the State of Rondônia, Fierro, and Vice President of the National Confederation of the Industry, Marcelo Tomé, representing the President of CNI, followed by the Turkish ambassador to Brazil, Haibra Avin Aksha. Ambassador from Australia to Brazil, Sophie Davis. And the high-level climate champion of COP30, Anatoni. The high-level climate champion of COP30, Jan Ayoshpi. Director of Institutional Relations of CNI, Roberto Muniz. And to welcome all of you, we invite the President of the Federation of the Industry of the State of Rondônia and the Vice President of CNI, Marcelo Tomé. Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge pleasure on behalf of CNI President Ricardo Alban to open this important event of such a dear agenda for Brazil, so dear for the Brazilian industry and also for climate, for the planet, anyhow. I begin greeting the ambassador of Turkey to Brazil, Aline Ambralu. Sorry for my pronunciation. Ambassador to Brazil, from Australia to Brazil, Sophie Davis, Executive Secretary of COP30, Anatoni, High-Level Climate Champion of COP30, Dan Ayoshpi. I greet the former Minister of the Environment, Joaquim Leite, present at this event. I greet the President of the Federation of the Industries of Mato Grosso State, my friend Silvio Rangel, Director of CNI, Paulo Afonso Ferreira, my greetings. Friend Ricardo Mussa, Chair of SBCOP. On behalf of the President of ABIT, Fernando Pimentel, all the representatives from the other entities here with us and entrepreneurs here with us, companies, sponsors, supporters, ladies and gentlemen, and I couldn't avoid mentioning Roberto Muniz, Director of Institutional Relations of the National Confederation of the Industry. My good morning to you all. Welcome to this event where we will discuss the results of COP30 and present the strategy of the industry for COP31 to be held in November in Turkey. By gathering over 60,000 people from the whole world in the Amazon region, COP30 held last year in Belém was a milestone in the history of climate conferences. Beyond celebrating the 10 years of the Paris Agreement, the meeting of the United Nations in Brazil was known as the COP of implementation because it seeks to transform commitments into concrete results. Among the main advancements of the conference, we highlight the launch of the Tropical Forest Forever Fund, trying to attract investments for the preservation and restoration of this environment for the country and the planet. The new mechanism of global financing can be used by over 70 nations that host 1 million hectares of tropical and subtropical forests. Another relevant announcement was the creation of the Open Coalition of Regulated Carbon Markets, led by Brazil and supported by the European Union and countries like China, Canada, and Mexico. Initiative has the goal of speeding up, driving the decarbonization of economy, speeding up economy, and meet the climate goals. In a challenging scenario, the multilateralism spirit present in the Paris Agreement is still alive and is essential for the solution of the world problems. In the debates, it was clear that countering global warming demands cooperation and coordinated initiatives that are realistic and ambitious. It was clear still that we need to speed up actions and establish a robust plan to get to COP30 with achievements to contribute with the climate goals. At COP30, the National Industry Confederation led proudly the Sustainable Business COP. This coalition amplified the presence of the voice of the productive sector, giving visibility to projects in areas like bioeconomy, circular economy, food systems, sustainable cities, and energy transition. We gathered companies of over 60 countries and we presented over 600 experiences that are ongoing, highlighting 48 climate initiatives that were successful, that had important positive impacts. These actions confirm that the industry has been contributing effectively to sustainable development. We also launched the report of the SBCOP Legacy for Brazil and the Amazon region, highlighting the potential of bioeconomy, productive chains that are regenerative and innovative industrial models able to speed up the the pace of economic growth. In the Amazon region, for example, adoption of measures turned towards decarbonization of production can generate 312,000 jobs and add 40 billion reais to the region's GDP till 2050, according to the data of the WRI Research Institution of Brazil. Ladies and gentlemen, productive sector can speed up transition for the post-carbon economy, and we want to do that in partnership with the public administration, the academia, and other segments of society. Our focus now turns towards COP30 conference, in which the challenge will be to give continuity to what we built till here. To keep on advancing, we need to amplify the set of entrepreneurs, sustainable solutions, and go deeper into the dialogue with financial institutions and government beyond contributing so that negotiations advance in the rhythm demanded by climate urgency. It's equally important to emphasize that economic development and sustainability are not antagonistic pathways. They are inseparable strategies that can transform for the better lives of people. Our expectation is that discussions of this event help transform the decisions from COP30 into a clear action plan for COP31 that demands coordination, dialogue, and development of proposals and joint actions to transform the ambitions announced in Belém into effective deliveries. We gather here specialists, entrepreneur leaderships, and developers of public policies, representatives of other sectors of society to identify the measures we must prioritize to amplify the priority of companies and speed up the transition to post-carbon industry. Our goal is to present at COP31 results that confirm the commitment of Brazil with the environment and sustainability. I'm certain that discussions at this meeting will strengthen the ability of the Brazilian industry to innovate, anticipate trends, and consolidate itself as a protagonist in the international climate agenda. CNI will keep on supporting the drafting of proposals, dialogue, and entrepreneur actions in climate negotiations. Urgency, consensus, and responsibility will keep on working for Brazilian industry sector to reach COP31 with projects, deliveries, and ambitions to meet the demands of the decarbonization of the economy. This is a moment of unity, strategic division, and restatement of the commitment of the industry with a more sustainable future that should be more inclusive and prosper for Brazil and for the world. Thank you very much. Have you all a good event. Thank you, Mr. President Marcelo Pimenta, for your words. We invite now the Director of Institutional Relations of CNI, Roberto Muniz, to take the floor. Good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. It's very good to be here with you. I want to greet Marcelo Tomé, President of the Federation, representing our President Malban, greeting also the President Hugo, former President and Vice President of CNI, our friend Paulo Afonso, greet Halil Ibrahim, Ambassador of Turkey to Brazil, Sophie Davis, Ambassador of Australia to Brazil, Dan Yosh, Piana Tony, who is the CEO of our COP. Greet everyone, and I also want to greet the employees of the House, the guests, and tell you all that it's a moment of thanking. We have to thank the people who believed and had faith COP was going to happen. I wanted the audience here. Well, I thank you, Lucia, for facing this challenge, for coordinating all this work. I want to greet all the co-chairs on behalf of Maria Emilia, who coordinated the Sustainable Cities Working Group. Greet all the advisories that contributed in a very good manner to help all this happening. Boston Consulting Center, Deloitte, Ernst Young, McKinsey, and Sistema. They were paramount for all this work to happen. But I also couldn't avoid thanking the sponsors, the Their support was fundamental. Schneider, Carbon Miseries, JBS, PFL, PepsiCo, Amphavia, IMBRF, Selim, GEA, Albras, Braskem, Hydro, Ibram, Itaúsa, a Syngenta, Vale, Latam, IBP, Suzano, and Ambev. I want a round of applause for those who believed
and sponsor this idea, and also say that, Anna, I'd like to say that COP COP with the beginning, like we were didn't believe it at all. But just a few of us believed that Brazil was capable to do that, and I'd like to greet the president-elect of the Federation of Industry in Pará, because he said we believed and we are going to do that in Pará. And I remember that we were together, me and Davi, and I'd also like to to talk about people that believe that. My team of Supreme, I'd like to thank you, that you all guys that believe since the beginning. A round of applause to all of us for the work that we did in our team. And when the President Lula talked to us, we were in Dubai, and he were joking with the governor of Pará, and he was saying, don't you have to stop thinking that we are going to have all those beautiful buildings, but we are going to have something that they don't have. We are going to have trees, and we're going to do COP, even if it has to be under a tree. And I'd like to say that just a few Brazilians believe that, and this room right now are the few people that believe that COP could be fulfilled and with quality. And that for me gets me something that is very important, because copy, it was something that people didn't believe and mistrust, and now it starts to be something that was ambition. And our investment and the government and the companies that are here said, no, we're gonna go beyond that. We want it to be a cup of implementation, and that is the legacy that Brazil has left for the future. And with that, we have to reflect of the importance that was this tragedy of SBCOP, because SBCOP it brings this idea of implementation and make this actor that has been seen as the ugly ducky of the industry, it can be faced as part of the solution and not part of the problem. And that was the challenge that we have. Most A lot of people believe that we didn't even get to participate, and we got it. We got it to get companies that believe on those and that agenda. And I like to talk a little bit about of the talk that I have on Tony, that a lot of people was thinking that this new this new geopolitical arrangement could be a block for this, but also it should be a hope that the multilateralism cannot die, and that is not an exit for the planet that is more just and with the humanity and the future. So I'd like to make it clear that the seed that was planted for all of us here in Brazil, that absolutely, with the coordination of Marcelo, our Musa, that we are gonna have to implement this in the world, and that we do not lose this strategy. This strategy should be permanent, and you can be sure that CNI will participate in a decisive way. And just to conclude my speech, I would like to say that during COP, CNI could build 997 panels between SB COP and COP, and over 30 bilateral meetings. We involve over 140 organizations during the process, and we have the presence of over 8,000 people in our stand. And we believe the COP was a success, and we can get we can get this message into our companies and say that we are partners and to continue this strategy for the industry, be even each day more a part of the solutions of the climate change. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Director Roberto Muniz, for your words, for this enthusiasm, and you're grateful for all of the people that believe in COP and that continue this into debates. We're gonna listen to high level climate change. Dan Yosh. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to greet our colleagues from the panel, the ambassadors, Sophie and Halil from Australia and Turkey, and our eternal CEO, Anatoni. I learned since the day one that it's better to talk about after Anatoly because she's always bright, the room and knows about everything. And Marcelo Tomé, that I had the opportunity to be part of his life in this part of this during the COP, and Marcelo that is together with us since B20, that it was a partner that we could develop a lot of things together. Good morning, everyone. It's an audience that is fulfilled of people that were fundamental for those cycle to achieve the main goals that we have as ambition at the beginning. For me, it's a pleasure to be here on CNI, the House of Industry. I feel at home to discuss what is going to happen after Berlin. And I also like to thank a lot for the President Ricardo Albano and also for Ricardo Mussa and Brasil Bom Tempo, because they start through a lot of inspiration, these leaderships and partnerships through this cycle to and sustainable business couple SB Corp. That was a milestone that proved that productive sector is not only watching the transition but leading with the concrete proposals. I'm a witness of the start of that at the B20 and how we can believe on these ideas and then this on those desires and make them happen in an organized and productive way. That is the way of SB Corp. COP30 it marks a change of the agenda, unifying efforts and aiming on the implementation of solutions. In Belém, the focus amplified going beyond the rooms of negotiations extremely well conducted to the implementation rooms of the agenda of climate actions. And also I'd like to greet Bruna Cerqueira in a warm way, that was the architect of this process on this collective work and of her inspiration. Through this cycle of COP30, we saw in a clear way that the success of the Paris Agreement depends on the speed on we convert those plans in solutions with the use of technology, innovative technologies, investments, cooperation between governments and society, civil society. As a champion, my focus and all of our team of climate champions team, it was and still is to show that climate actions are fundamental and agenda of the socio-economic sustainable development. And this is an agenda that is very competitive. During last year, we act with a collaboration with the presidency of Brazil in COP30 and UNFCCC to guarantee the development of a climate action agenda that is unified, that is start to be an engineer of execution that would be more efficient and that support the implementation of solutions by all of you 365 days per year, 24 hours a day, and not only on the weeks of COP. And for that, we anchored this process on the called global stakes transforming what was decided by the diplomats in a language that the private sector could understand, the language of implementation of solutions, a collective work and inclusion, measure goals and transparent. Today, this process is huge and it reunite over 340 global collective actions organized in 30 groups that look for a lot of solutions and different sectors. In Belém, those groups present 120 on the agenda of solutions when the acceleration solutions, those plans or guidelines that were details to help to improve those investments and adoption of technologies in the broad way, stopping the evolution of competitiveness and the aiming of the goals of the Paris Agreement. All of that in a global scale. I was talking with the embassy, Sophie, about the event that it was yesterday of SAF in São Paulo, and how promising this topic could be for a lot of countries, and especially Brazil. But we're gonna make that happen, or in fact we're gonna lose this opportunity of accelerating our social economic development on this topic, and I could name a lot of other ones. Those active groups and those plans of accelerations of solutions in a global level, but also related to our country, is this idea that in fact we started this bottlenecks and these barriers that we have and made that happen in a fast and effective way. For the audience here today, I'd like to mention three results, practical results that we have in Belém. And one of them, Marcelo already mentioned, in the infrastructure sector of electric system, the UNESA elevated their investment goal of year for over $148 billion as a total of a trillion dollars of 30 projects that are going to be defined and very detailed to modernize networks and infrastructures for, in fact, we can triple the capacity of using of renewable energy in the same period. That is obviously going to make a huge difference on this road to achieve the agreement, the Paris Agreement's goal on the harmonization carbon market, for the market to establish common principles to unblock $50 billion annually of financing climate actions, to find ways for the companies to increase the carbon and actions for that. And the logistics sector, talking about a specific Brazilian case, very important, the project Lane Shift Redutra, that took a concrete step on the electrification of the corridor between São Paulo and Rio, so we can have electric trucks until 2030 to avoid 75 tons annually of CO2 on this part. Effectively, Brazil used COP30 as a showroom that should show that implementation of those actions gets a lot of value for the society, for the countries that are implementing the solution, and also for those that can use those ones. All of those reinforce the sustainable development and their competitivity. And I also like to highlight once again, for us to be in this environment, the competitivity is fundamental for all of those processes of sustainability. But our mission didn't stop in Belém. The spirit of that is started by the presidents of Brazil in COP30 is going to move on through the second half of the decade, where we have to accelerate the implementation so we can achieve our main goals in a global scale, and that we can have a reasonable future ahead of us. Together with the Brazilian presidency and FLCCC, we are working in three priority fronts for this year. One, continuity and scale would like to ensure the transition that is fluid for the leadership in Turkey, Australia, and the islands of Pacific during COP31, guaranteeing that the vision of 5 years approved by the member countries of COP30 avoid the fragmentation and gain a global scale. And we are working together with my friend from Turkey that is going to talk in a while to ensure the structure of the action agenda continues and integrate the priorities, the topic priorities from our countries. And just a second, please. From our countries through this, starting this year. Second, the unified language of implementation. We want that the implementation agenda be aligned with the goals of the governments represented by their NDCs, fostering a strategy of investments effective and continuous, taking signs for all of us to accelerate the implementation of solutions. And for that, we're going to work hard with the initiatives that are engaged in the agenda to advance with their accelerating solution plans during the year, presenting their progress and maturity in Turkey in COP31. Third, the support of the Brazilian government and for delivering strategy, especially through the global acceleration of implementation. And in this way, we're going to keep going, working for this agenda to support the implementation of the roadmaps led by the presidents. The roadmap from Baku Belém focus on the annual resources for the finance and investment and big scale, from the fossil fuels and the forests and climb. We believe that the structure and this collective efforts and qualified could support in a relevant way this delivers. And I'd like to encourage all of you to keep this engagement through the channels that are very active and qualified as SBCOP, CBEDS, Global Pacts, World Climate Foundations, and all of them that are engaged on the initiatives of the action agenda. Our team is committed and prepared to support in this continuous working in a complex world with a lot of volatility and facing clearly the effects of climate changing. The social development, economic and sustainable development is an opportunity for our time beyond being a way for competitivity, and because of that we have to accelerate. Thank you very much for the inspiring leadership and collaboration, and above all for the results that we have. The world thank you, and that we can work 360 days a year, 24 hours a year, focus on the implementation and acceleration of the solutions on climate change. And thank you very much. Thank you, Dan, for your participation. Now we're going to watch a video by high-level climate champion of COP31, Samed Aghebas.
How much of what your company produce today will end up in landfill with 5 years? For most industries, the answer is far too much. And every ton of wasted material is wasted energy, wasted money, and increased emission. The good news is that money of you in this room are already making your businesses and industry more sustainable. As the climate high-level champion for COP31, my job is to connect your action to the goals of Paris Agreement and support its implementation. And today, I want to talk about one of the biggest opportunity for business and industry. We talk a lot about clean energy, and we should, but here is number that surprise people. Circular strategies, keeping materials in use, designing out waste, reusing and remanufacturing can deliver 5% of the emission cuts the world needs by 2050. That is nearly half the job. Think about what this means for the sectors in this room: steel, cement, plastics, textile, electronics, food, construction. These are hardest sectors to decarbonize, and circular approach make the task faster and more realistic. But this is not only about emission. A circular economy also builds the kind of the resilience every CEO has been thinking about since the pandemic. Local supply chains, repairable system, less depends of the volatile global markets for the critical minerals. Put simply, we cannot decarbonize a wasteful economy. We have to change the economy itself. Now, I know business leaders want to see evidence, not just ambition. So, let me share what is already moving in Turkey. Our national climate plan puts the circular economy and zero waste initiative at the center of our path, net zero by 2053. Our national strategy is expected to create over 100,000 new jobs. Will also unlock major investment. Many countries have circular economy strategies already. In Latin America, Brazil's strategy links circular production to lower emission and restoring ecosystems. Chile's circular economy roadmap was just extended until 2040. And in Europe, every European Union member state now has a circular economy policy supporting climate neutrality. At the COP31, we are going further. I will launch the Istanbul Initiative on Zero Waste and Climate Change, a platform to build real partnership that puts zero waste and circular economy principles into practice across production, consumption, and waste management. We are currently working on the establishment of the dedicated financing mechanism to mobilize research from philanthropy and the private sector. Strategy challenging support towards scaling proven high-impact climate solution in a coordinated and result-oriented manner. Some of you may ask, how does this fit into the UN climate process and into the broader climate action agenda? The action agenda is a framework that connects business, cities, communities to goals of the Paris Agreement. It spans 6 axes: energy and industry, nature, food systems, cities, people, and finance. The circular economy is a thread that runs toward all 6. It reduces demand for energy and critical minerals. It keeps foresting standing, it cuts food waste and supports farmers. It transforms cities and into resource loops. It creates millions of the local jobs. It accelerates the transition to low carbon economy, and it gives investors a clear signal about where to direct capital. One more thing that matters deeply to me: climate action cannot be privileged. It cannot only serve large companies or wealthy nations. What I find power about the circular economy that it creates opportunity at every scale and every region. A small repair work in Istanbul, a woman lead the recycling business in São Paulo. These are climate solutions too. And on the road to Antalya, I am committed to making sure these voices are heard. Both digital platforms, regional engagement, and genuine inclusion in the COP process. So, here is my invitation to you. You build things, you invest, you employ millions of people. You move supply chains that span the globe. That is exactly the power we need. Join us on the road to COP31 in Antalya. Bring your best ideas. Challenge us where we are too slow and help us show the world that fighting climate change and building stronger economy are same thing. Thank you.
E assistiremos neste momento ao
We will now watch the video sent by the president of COP30 to Brazil, Ambassador André Correa do Lago. It's with huge joy that I talk to you a little bit about the extraordinary role of the Brazilian private sector during COP30. In the preparation of the conference, we try to get closer to every sectors, asking for suggestions, studies, asking them about the ways they thought they could participate more in COP30. And I think the result was absolutely extraordinary. And the world saw the Brazilian private sector joined around COP30. What symbolizes that extraordinarily is the SBCOP. SBCOP was an idea from a daring act that could expand throughout the world. Wherever I go throughout the world, they tell me about SBCOP. So I just wanted to thank once again for the incredible role you had in a COP that wanted to show the world we have many things negotiated and we can have a lot of implementation. And implementation depends on the private sector, on the local administrations, many more players than central governments. So with the Brazilian private sector in the leadership, which showed implementation is not only happening already, but can be upscaled meaningfully. So I only have to thank you and tell you 2026, we will carry on. We still have to work together a lot this year and keep this perception very clear as to the Brazilian leadership, including in the preparation of COP31 in Turkey. So before anything, thank you very much. And now we'll hear the ambassador of Australia to Brazil, Sophie Delis. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity of talking to you today. My co-speakers, Director and Secretary Anatoni, Your Excellency Ambassador Aksha, distinct representatives of the government and the diplomatic corps, entrepreneur leaderships and colleagues. I'd like to thank especially the National Federation of the Industry and its directors for promoting this debate. Also my Turkish colleagues, Mr. Kano, are highlighting our close partnership in preparing for COP31. COP30 was an achievement that was meaningful for Brazil and for the multilateral system. In a moment that is pretty critical, Brazil showed that climate diplomacy, ambitious climate diplomacy can be inclusive, efficient, and able to reach consensus in a moment where multilateralism is under pressure. To host the conference in Belém brought the global climate diplomacy to the Amazon region, and as we mentioned, under the trees, bringing the negotiations to a region that incorporates the climate action urgency as well as the opportunity for sustainable development. COP30 brought real impact to negotiations and applied the voices of the economies in the development of the indigenous communities and of the ones more exposed to climate risk. The drive generated in Belém and along 2025 showed the global commitment with multilateralism and the Paris Agreement and highlighted the progress of the last 10 years, although recognizing the long path we still have ahead of us. The spirit of global multilateralism and collective effort and the shared responsibility showed that climate action demands coordination among governments, markets, and societies, and it can't be led by a single country, sector, or region. Negotiations, of course, have a paramount role. They establish structures, direction, and ambitions, but the implementation happens beyond negotiation rooms. The industry, investors, financial institutions, and innovators, like all of you here, are the ones that use capital, develop infrastructure, expand technologies, and promote the reduction of the emissions following the example of Brazil. COP31 will reach not only the negotiated results, but also practical pathways for implementation supported by companies and capital. Australia has the pride of working in partnership with Turkey, a country with which we share a long history, to take COP31 forth in 2026. Australia will work in partnership with the Pacific also to deliver a pre-COP that places a global spotlight over our region. Our partnerships with the Pacific nations and Turkey are as historical as substantial, reflecting genuine cooperation among regions and shared commitment to deliver solid climate results for everyone. We greet the role of Turkey as president of COP31 and host of the Summit of Leaders. Minister of Australia for Climate Change and Energy, Mr. Chris Bowen, will act as president of negotiations. Together, we will operate as a single team to deliver solid climate results, to increase the resilience, reduce emissions, support sustainable development, and unleash economic opportunities for the transition. Pre-COP of the Pacific will be particularly important. Australia greets the announcement of the Forum of the Pacific Islands in the sense that Fiji will lead the pre-COP meetings, while Tuvalu will have a special leadership component. Pre-COP will provide an opportunity to elevate the voices and the countries of the Pacific to assure the realities of the small insular states that are in development should mold the agenda since the beginning. These countries are the ones that less contribute to global emissions, but face some of the most severe impacts. Their leadership is essential to keep the high morale as well as political urgency. I want to congratulate the fundamental work at COP30 from Mr. Ricardo Mussa and Mr. Dani Joshpi in promoting the role of the industry. And we dearly welcome the nomination of Turkey of Mr. Samet Arsbash as climate champion of high level at COP31 to mobilize players now, non-state players, including companies, civil society, youth, and local governments will be core to assure that the ambition is followed by the results delivery, the famous implementation. Australia hopes to support the action agenda for COP31 and to collaborate with interested parties to speed up the deliveries in priority areas. We will work with Turkey to identify other champions, climate champions, including the representation of the Pacific. By looking towards COP31, we see that a more strong climate action must be sustained by investment, the transition to clean energy, resilient infrastructure, and green industry is an economic transformation that depends on clear political definitions and the ability of the companies and of capital to develop projects and expand technologies. Australia and Turkey share a practical approach guided by investments, recognizing the importance of regulation of renewable energy in the resilient supply chains. Together, we can make the conditions that promise capital flow, plans for sectorial changes, simplified project development, upscalable financial mechanisms, and deeper collaborations between governments, industry, and multilateral institutions into reality. By elevating these practical elements in COP31, Australia and Turkey can translate the climate ambition into pipelines that are ready for investments around the world. COP31 will be, in the last analysis, judged not by rhetoric but by results through partnerships between governments, industry, finances, communities, and we have the opportunity to show that multilateral climate action carries on being trustworthy, cooperative, and able. Thank you. We thank you for your participation, Madam Ambassador. Now, the Ambassador of Turkey to Brazil has the floor, Haim Ibrahim Akşar.
Thank you very much. The last one was the correct pronunciation of my last name, actually. It is not easy to pronounce. Akça. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor and pleasure to address you today. First of all, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry for hosting this timely and meaningful event. The COP30 summit in Belém under the Brazilian presidency last year proved to be a success, setting a strong benchmark for Turkey's upcoming presidency of this major international meeting. Considered to be the biggest and most widely attended United Nations conference held annually. In the period ahead, Turkey looks forward to working with Brazil and benefiting from its valuable experience to ensure that COP31 will also be an implementation conference. I also would like to acknowledge the innovative partnership and strong collaboration that Turkish COP31 presidency has with Australia, which has taken on the role of president of negotiations as per the agreement formalized in COP30. Indeed, technical teams and competent authorities from our two countries are already holding fruitful meetings on a timely basis. We are confident that together with our partners, we will produce a COP that will be built on enhance trust between all parties, measured by results and defined by action. Esteemed guests, as upcoming president, Turkey has already started the incentive preparation for the conference with our partners. The priority theme for our presidency is under discussions, focusing on climate resilient cities, climate action implementation mechanism, green industrialization, clean energy transition, oceans and seas, food security, youth and education, and synergies between the Rio Conventions. We are also working to integrate the Zero Waste initiative launched under the leadership of Her Excellency Emine Erdoğan, First Lady of the Turkish Republic, as one of the top priorities in our climate action agenda for COP31. I should also take this occasion to note that the 30th of March, International Day of Zero Waste, jointly facilitated by the United Nations Environment Programme and UN Habitat, will focus on the theme of food waste this year. We hope to mark this important occasion in Brasilia as well. Distinguished participants, climate change stands out as one of the most comprehensive and multidimensional challenges that we are currently facing as the global community. Overcoming this challenge requires more coordinated action, not only by governments, but also by the private sector, financial institutions, local authorities, and civil societies. We also recognize that climate action needs to speed up, particularly in terms of implementation and financing, in order to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. In this respect, the role of the private sector in the climate agenda is critical. Therefore, we will work to ensure that the COP process encourages more effective participation of the business community in this endeavor. That being said, it is clear that accelerating the green transition of the private sector requires predictable policies, accessible financing opportunities, and technology transfer. Supporting developing countries will also be essential for ensuring global climate justice. Turkey views the green transition as an integral part of its economic growth strategy too, in line with its sustainable development objectives. Our country has announced a net zero emissions target for 2053 and continues to strengthen its policy and legislative framework accordingly. Energy efficiency, renewable energy investment, circular economic practices, and sustainable finance mechanism constitute the main pillars of this transformation of Turkish economy. Esteemed guests, with the foregoing consideration, Turkey will utilize its human-focused diplomatic tradition and its vast diplomatic network and experience to the full extent, in close coordination with Australia and partners in order to organize a solution-oriented COP that will produce concrete and actionable outcomes, making COP30 as the COP of the future. With a strong conviction that climate action must advance on an inclusive, fair, and implementable basis, we will continue to make constructive contributions to multilateral climate diplomacy in the period towards COP31. Without doubt, the dynamism and innovative capacity of the private sector will play a key role in achieving these goals. Thank you for your attention.
Agradecemos as palavras do embaixador e a participação das autoridades nesta abertura. Convido a todos vocês para retornarem aos seus assentos para darmos continuidade à programação. Pedimos apenas que a secretária Antônio permaneça à mesa para proferir suas palavras.
Eu estava em tão boa companhia que agora me sentindo um pouco sozinha nessa mesa imensa.
Se preferir ficar à vontade.
No, if you, I'm gonna be here. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here and to greet all my colleagues that were here with me in this panel that we have been working, even though they are not on the table right now. I'd like to greet all of them. A lot of them that are here on the audience, but most importantly, Duncan, we worked together this whole year. Marcelo also, and us. We work so close to CNI in this process, the whole process that we were together with us. Ricardo, your work was incredible in SB COP, and I believe the COP that was already mentioned, it was this collective work, this work that we got to do it together. Andre mentioned before, and it was a pleasure working with him. And I believe that copy was this kaleidoscope. Most of all of us saw it in a different way, and each one of you count told about your own perspective of COP, and our ambassadors thinking about the COP30 Australia and Turkey that we are working together with them. Sir, I'm gonna talk to you about the legacy of COP30 from my point of view, from a CEO working with Andres, the president of COP. I have mixed feelings on how good was COP. Of course, we see in a specific way, but I believe there is some things that I'd like to share with you. First, I believe that COP30 marks, as Andres said, that we are calling 2 years multilateralism. This multilateralism of two speeds, and this was very clear in our COP that we have a multilateralism by consensus that in this geopolitics it's harder, but it's absolutely fundamental for the multilateralism. In our COP, this multilateralism by consensus, we have a huge success. We're not talking enough about that. In COP30, we approved 56 agreements by consensus, decisions from UNFCCC that were approved, and most of them were very important. For example, triple the resource for adapting, the plan of just transition, the mechanisms of just transition, those indicators for adaptations, those dialogues about trade in the convention, within the conventions that didn't have before, the women programs that were approved, that was approved, that was something that has been debated for years. It was approved, the accelerator that we have to construct with Turkey and Australia. So there was approved a lot of decisions by consensus between 195 countries that in this geopolitics we don't even have to say that how hard it is. It was a very important step. And this multilateralism, we avoid something that in the beginning of COP we were afraid. As by the time that the United States decided to left the Paris Agreement, that other countries would do the same thing. And it passed a whole year, and not even a country step up from the agreement and the climate convention. So this is very important to remind that even though the geopolitics, not even a country step aside, exception the United States, that we can talk a little bit about that. So in the normative international part of this multilateralism by consensus, a lot of things happen in COP30, but we also saw a lot of limitation of multilateralism by consensus. And let's be realistic that in the next years, we're going to have a lot of challenges, and in COP31, we are still talking and we have to advance on that, but obviously understand where is geopolitics. And on the other hand, we have the multilateralism by collisions of multi-stakeholders. That is the agenda leader of leaders we saw with the leadership of Don and Bruna Cerqueira that they are both here with us in our team with SB CNI, a lot of countries, 120 plans of acceleration, as we call collisions of willingness, that those who wants to get in, but we have goals and plans where the implementation we do not have to have consensus of 195 countries, or are those private groups that get with the government and come together and say that we need and we can and we will implement more in a more fast way. And we had 120 plans, and those implementations that we mentioned, TFF is an example of it. UNES was another example, that we have a lot of examples here that we were talking about. We have the solution banks. Seeing Marcelo here with the cases of two, they have the solution banks that we have together with the action plans. So we see that we have this multilateralism that now by consensus they're going to keep going, by collisions that they're going each time are going to be stronger. They don't compete with each other, they complement each other. We have to straight both of them, but there are some things that we cannot wait, and there are some things that we have to work together with these collisions. And this, I believe, that is one of the most important legacies of COP30. Second, Dan mentioned a lot, that is the beginning of the new decades of COPs. There is the implementation, acceleration. There's no quotas. We see that happening 10 years after the Paris Agreement. We have a legal and international way that guide us. We know what is the direction of a 0.5. We know what is NDC, SNAPs, and transparency plans, and is involving with the carbon market. So we know the directions of what we have to do, and what we need to do is accelerate, and it's very obvious. And the market see that is a fundamental for this process. So the second legacy that I see as from COP30, and the third legacy that I believe that we got from COP30 is to acknowledge, as John said, that COP is not an event, are not only 2 weeks. COP is a process that happens every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The COP, and to us here in Brazil, together with the private sector, COP is start for us 2 years ago by thinking about COP. Yes, last year we structured ourselves and we passed the whole year doing working on COP, and we have the 2 weeks, and now COP continues. I saw the name of this event is Post-COP, and for us it's still COP because it's COP every day. So I believe this is the importance for us to acknowledge that COP is every day, and it's fundamental. We noticed that last years we built this here in Brazil, this spirit of this co-construction the whole year, and I believe that it was a good legacy. And we are talking about COP31, and this is the process that we have to strengthen. The fourth legacy that I'd like to mention is the relationship, public-private relationship. We've been talking previously that COP is a case of this relationship, this private-public relationship that we co-construct the whole year, that together we have to come together. And I'm very happy about that. Andre mentioned that a lot, that Brazil arrives at COP, we arrived together. We weren't like talking about other problems. On the contrary, that makes us very proud. Brazil, the private and public sector, civil society, social movements, to show that Brazil is a huge provider of solutions on climate matters. Brazil has a lot of governance and economic instruments, tools like the carbon market, the Climb Fund, all of the projects of the companies, showing not only Brazil as a provider of climate solutions, but that a lot of us that we have to be ready for that. So COP was a showroom. So when we arrive there together as a private and public sector together, we can explain the whole world what are the our advantage and the competitiveness that we have. So COP left this legacy, and we have this whole year to work together. And one of the legacies that I believe that is very important, at least for me to mention, I believe that Muniz mentioned that all of COPs have their own challenges. At the beginning, we were talking about Belém. We're not going to have places to sleep. Some of delegations and other private sectors, they got food to Belém because they didn't know. People thought that it was going to be terrible. And for me, of course, being there, working that I mentioned for them, it's almost the sensation that it was like the Hunger Games, where if are we going to survive for the next day? Where's going to be the next challenge? Flood, hot, fire, the negotiation with someone that it wasn't working. We have all of the tensions, and the only reason that we survive and survive in the good way that it was because we were united. We have the capability to sit with the private sector and talk to them and work together in the image of Brazil and resolve the problem. If you're hot, let's see how we're going to solve this one. And this union showed that when we are together, we are very strong. And I hope that this legacy of COP30 teaches in this relationship between private and public sector that we can face the problems, talk through it with different perspective, and get over it. And the last legacy to mention, I believe that Brazil show a lot of inclusion and democracy, that it was absolutely fundamental. That picture of André with the indigenous kid on their arms, it was a symbol, but it was a cup where there was a lot of participation of indigenous movements, women movements. There, of course, there were tensions that is in a lot of other countries, but the way that we deal with that was good. Of course, I don't wanna like say that it was everything perfect. We had a lot of challenges, but we tried to face them all. And now our work is to think about 2026 in a way that we were very pragmatic, thinking about 2025 on what the presidency can see for the private sector. And now we have to sit down and talk and see how we're going to use that now that we are president as COP30 and we can for the COP31. What do you want for 2026? Working together with the private sector. From our part, we had a planning. We passed through Australia, Turkey. We sat together with our colleagues. We have our priorities for the presidency of the COP30. At this moment, we promise, and we're gonna do a roadmap of these transitions for the fossil fuels. So it was an invitation for us to do this together. This document is going to be delivered for COP31, and we also promised a roadmap for the end of the forestment. About the forest, we are going to have a talk about that. We launched that by the United Nations. I hope that you receive that, and we are going to continue a very important debate that we started, that is how to attract investment for the countries in the south, on the global south. 1.3 trillion, not only going to the source, but the specific demands in Brazil. We have the platforms of country, Eco-Invest, Climate Fund. How can we show that and give the visibility for these instruments and have the funds? We know that this private sector here in Brazil is susceptible of the climate change, so we are gonna keep working on that with the private sectors, with the insurance companies, with the adaptations, the action agenda done said. It's fundamental, and that's where we are working more in our time, how we can maintain this 5-year plan, these missions that talk about the global stake, that have the close relationship with the pragmatism that Turkey and Australia are bringing to us. And those are the priorities that we set up, and the accelerator that talk with this implementation. We passed the COP30 event. We have the pre-COP, and I'd like to thank, my role here is to thank a lot all of you that helped the presidency. It was part of the presidency on behalf of all of them, and our enthusiasm, the doubt of all of us a year ago is it was if Belém could hold the event, and we passed through that. And by Turkey and Australia, at the beginning, the question was, how is it going to be a COP leader by two different countries? Is it going to work? So my as a witness meeting them, getting together with our colleagues is going to be different, of course, because all of the COPs are different, but I have no doubt that it's going to work, that it's going to be incredible. So I'm very, very happy to be working with Turkey and Australia. They know that they can count with COP30 with everything. We are getting meetings. It's going to be a wonderful COP. And one of the data that we have, that is a pragmatic COP on the acceleration of implementation. That is what we need right now. And of course, not let what happening in the world right now get us. That is a lot of thing happening. We already have commercial wars, but now we have this other war happening. Those things cannot be in the way. We have to have our own goal, and we cannot let that get in our way and stop us from our activities. And we also have to be pragmatic and understand the situation, and of course have flexibility to look what we see, that we have these two tiers multilateralism, and see where can we advance, and what we cannot do, keep continue. So I'd like to thank a lot the CNI, SBCOP.
Aldan, our climate champion, it was a pleasure working with you, and thank Turkey and Australia for the partnership. We will work a lot this year together. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Secretary, for sharing this clear vision of the COP30 legacy with us, not only the results, but also the learnings and the processes that will be in our next steps. I'd like to acknowledge the President of the Energy Transition Commission, Green Hydrogen, and the lower chamber, Federal Representative Arnoldo Jardim. Thank you for your presence. And also of the Director André Sobrinho, representing the President of the Federation of the Industries of Pará. Welcome also. Well, now we'll begin our panels. First panel with the topic, the results and deliveries of Sustainable Business COP, this COP30, and the perspectives for COP31. We invite to integrate the panel, Chair of SB COP, Ricardo Mussa, Vice President of Corporate Matters of PepsiCo, Suelma Rosa, Director of Schneider Electric, Mati Pixon, Director of Institutional Relations of CNI and moderator of this panel, Roberto Muniz. As we've greeted everyone, I'd like to initially thank you for your presence, the debaters, and begin our panel dedicated to the deliveries and results of the pre-COP and the COP and perspectives for COP31. SB was a pioneer initiative led by CNI. It was pretty clear of the relevance of SB as a strategy of the industries of Brazil and also international industries inspired in the B20 model. We had the inspiration of B20, the presence of Dan and Musa, this strategy of continuity in the results of the first section. So the dimension of this mobilization engagement of over 40 million companies in 60 countries, formal recognition of UNFCCC with global climate actions in the partnership of Marrakesh, draft of the letter and delivery to the presidency of COP30 with the priority of private sector, 10 priorities organized in strategic topics, production of 10 technical booklets of the priorities, curatorship of over 670 entrepreneur cases with strong protagonism of South America. We also had the launch of SB Awards, recognizing 48 initiatives of high impact potential, delivery of SB legacy to the President of the Republic, translating global priorities for specific action in Brazilian context with highlights in the Amazon territory of the whole, over 20 international events held and over 35 working groups. It was not only institutional participation, there was technical production, consolidation of priorities, and presentation of concrete solutions. Only thing now we are in the phase of consolidation and preparation of COP31, and under this new perspective is that we hold our debate. And before we begin, I want to remind you that in the end of the panel, Ricardo Mussa will do a brief presentation about the next steps of SB and it will be an important moment for us to understand how to consolidate this BCOP as a permanent forum in global scale with impact and climate agenda. So I want to here greet Mussa, chair of our SBCOP, Suelma Rosa, Vice President of Corporate Action of PepsiCo, and Matthew Piercing, Director of Schneider Electric Services, that I can already call a good Baiano, an integration, a participant of the state of Bahia population. Musa, the first session of the SBCOP, fulfilled the mission of showing global entrepreneur sectors committed with solutions to speed up climate action and support the implementation of the commitments taken on in the climate conferences. We now are in the phase of consolidating SBCOP as a ongoing forum with more adherent action to the agendas. In considering this new moment, what can we expect from SBCOP till COP31? To strengthen its institutional role, mobilize all who are here, make them keep mobilized and amplify impacts in global and local agendas. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for your words, Muniz. It's, I think, the first year when we established this, I didn't imagine the dimension we would get to in terms of representativeness. There is no association in any of the countries we invited to participate, which are the Kenyans around the country that didn't join SBCOP. So the first year, if you ask me, I'm very proud of the work done and for the organization, but there's a little frustration that when I look towards the work of CNI in Brazil and how much you can effectively influence, in a good sense, the pathway of the functions, the leaderships and the topics you get involved in, I think we could have had more influence. I think this year we're better organized and to have more impact over the deliveries from SBCOP. So I think the scale we took, the forums we were invited to, how we are within enough to see with the global action agenda, we have much more power of influencing this year than we had last year. Last year was the first year, so to me, for me, what we need to expect for COP31 will repeat the success we had last year. I'll explain in the end of the presentation of the things that worked, but the main focus is how we can implement and have more influence. So we'll be reducing the number of topics we'll deal with in a continued way, as you mentioned, during the year. With these topics, we'll have more depth and we'll have a positioning. So it's a position paper. We'll establish positions over given topics, and we'll use the power the CNIs around the world in Turkey, Tunisia, in Australia, AI, India, CSI, CCPIT in China, to, through the private sector, be able to have more influence over the discussions regarding climate and with more pragmatism. So for me, when we talk about implementation, this last year we built a lot of things. We had a lot of support. Developments were incredible, materials, good success cases, but now we need to be more. I'd like to measure our KP at the end of the year is what we effectively will be able to influence in the agenda. That's why we can't have many topics. Antonio mentioned the roadmap transition rate from post-COP30. That topic will participate clearly. The carbon market and 3 or 4 topics we'll deal with globally. But we won't lose what we did well at the first COP. We will have leadership of Turkey and Australia together with Brazil. We'll carry on with SB COP awards. We'll have 6 topics that will be dealt with in detail to deliver recommendations during the year. But I think we'll have a different role to use that ballast, so to say, COP had to have a different movement. So I'd like to replicate globally the role CNT has in Brazil with the climate issues, SBCOP being a major transformer for that. Here in Brazil, we'll have SBCOP working strongly. I talked to Marcelo Furtado how we'll be acting in Brazil. We'll have what we call local SBCOP. I'm doing a spoiler of my presentation, but as global SBCOP, these are works that will be, and each country has its structure through its industry and trade confederation doing the same work. So I think this year will begin. We took what was done good, and we created a good moment. Nobody expected this all this volume, all this weight, but we can use this to have more impact over the discussions, not only in negotiations, but also in implementation. So I think we need to expect from SBCOP this year more results and more deliveries than we had last year. I'm not saying we didn't have good deliveries, but I think we can do more. You know, when you have this sensation of having a Ferrari in your hand, we're not exploring all the vehicle can provide. That's a sensation. I go to the forums, I'm received, I'm welcome. So we're not using all the power SBCOP has to deliver, to make deliveries. We must exercise the muscle, so to say, and do much more. Very well, very good, Musa. So I think there is a prize for ineditism. And we learn in the pathway. We learn as we go. Government didn't understand what SBCOP was. We had experiences. Companies had previous experiences with us. They believed in us. And I think your leadership, Dan's leadership, Marcelo's leadership, with Davi himself also, we adjusted the tone and the way. So you remodeled the trajectory when the cases that began being a side happening, you brought to the center. This was a major learning. I think surely you will provide continuity to this trajectory, this pathway. And I'd like to thank PepsiCo initially and tell you, Suelma, you as Vice President, I'd like to thank you for the partnership. And how can COP speed up integration between the companies and state? And you have a specific sustainability program and the global funding instruments for public policies to assure foreseeability and continuity of the food systems. Before anything, thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure, a joy to be here with you again. I was missing you. COP30 left this empty space. I see many friends here in the auditorium that are companions in this agenda. Truth is that resuming, coming from the point left by Ricardo, SBCOP brought an innovation and the participation of the private sector in a multilateral process, but maybe we have more challenges regarding the new world history. And Antonio was mentioning the geopolitical risks and the pressure over multilateralism and the opportunity of providing continuity to this engagement standard, which is very innovative, and bringing society to the core of the talk. In the case of SBCOP, society represented by its business elements, by the companies, in order for us not to lose, so there is no loss of everything we already achieved and developed. And I think on PepsiCo that sent 150,000 cases to Ricardo and David's team and all the advisories had to work hard to filter so much information we shared with you. What we did was believe in the model in which the private sector has the ability of innovating and the private sector has the ability of transforming value chains. But it's not its role to establish public policy models that really consolidate those transformations. So we are very proud of having been selected by the cases we brought, but our pilots, the projects we implement throughout the world, we send cases from 14 countries where we are present in the regenerative agriculture and food system milestones. So our goal, our idea was to share inputs for a reflection on public policies and scale. And the milestone of a COP that brought a proposal for implementation was an implementation conference. So in the journey towards COP31, given the global challenges we have nowadays, the most important thing is that we're able to not lose focus. And not losing focus means in Brazil, with CNI, keep moving forward towards milestones that consolidate competitive advantages of a country that produces food, but that has food production aligned to the preservation of forests, aligned to the climate ambitions of the country. From the regional standing point, a huge collaboration, and me thinking on Latin America through the scope of similar challenges among Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, with all the political challenges. So to promote that cooperation and that technological exchange of innovations, but also social technologies. And in the milestone of the negotiating advancement of COP31, bring towards this milestone, which wasn't possible, which is the roadmap that is being worked upon parallelly by all the negotiating conditions, but that is truly a consolidator of the model, focusing in implementation. So we keep on believing in the model of SBCOP. It's really a model that allows for engagement of a more sophisticated level, which is the level of results, technologies, experiences, but also trying to move in two directions. One, public policies in Brazil. We can't lose momentum in the country, and another one of consolidation of the process of negotiations of COP31 that brings centrality of the voices of society, taking the opportunity of transformations that the Brazilian case in COP30 brought for the negotiation process. So I'm very happy to be here and renewing on behalf of PepsiCo the commitment with SBCOP of carrying on together in this journey. Thank you very much, Suelma. And this commitment of yours makes us very happy and incentivizes us in remaining in this articulation here at CNI with you. And I think you bring us something that maybe is one of the largest challenges we found at the beginning. And that is every time we talked, Musa, with the government seemed to demand us for something we weren't doing. And our narrative, our speech, well, it seemed we were always in debt. Right? Understood, Fernanda. Fernanda follows that of the companies and the energy intensive sectors. It was always a demand in the sense that the companies were asleep somehow and only the government moved forward. And SPCOP, through the cases, made that voice, made this showed this path already trailed by many companies. So PepsiCo, with all these cases, brings the visibility to entrepreneur actions, companies' actions on behalf of climate crisis. And then, Matthew, you who are director of Schneider Electric, that during COP saw the qualification, professional qualification, gaining protagonism in the discussions over climate transition. And at the same time, global technology energy companies like Schneider Electric have been supporting the role towards the decarbonization of the industries. How these two pillars, developing talents, green jobs, and the adoption of technological solutions, how do they connect to make the low carbon transition feasible?
Dear Roberto, good morning. Thank you very much, CNI, for the partnership. I also like to thank Ricardo. It was a pleasure on behalf of Ricardo Janada to be part of SPCOP and to be on the chair of Green Skills. And it's a pleasure to share with you this panel. And I'd like to answer your questions, Roberto, by showing you the perspective of who is on the side of the industry, and also to give you a national perspective of Brazil, of what we see here in our country. And when we talk about decarbonization, talking in a technical way, we have three reaches. And when I talk to the executives, I have a serenity on how we achieve on the level 1 and 2. This is under control. And when we see that, when we see the advances of decarbonization, we notice that we have a delay within the goals that we have. And what is the lesson that we can understand about that when we look at Brazil, for example? When we look the emissions that are from electric emissions, the level 2 reach, we have the completely decarbonization. It's a reference for the whole world, but the demand is growing. Brazil has been in a position, and the electrification of fleets, air conditioners, the electrification of the industrial consumption. And what we saw in 2025 with the uncertainties that we have in the regulatories due to the regulatory measures on the electric sector is that it wasn't that easy, and and it hasn't been easy for the industry to ensure the renewable energy with the prices there for competition. The incentives change. It was reduced in parts. The value change in the sector, most important in this sector, it has been attacked by the new rules and new offers. And all of us saw the challenges with the curtailment that let the investors not encouraged to develop this new projects of renewable energy. So in our positions in Schneider Electrics, we see industries all over the world trying to buy renewable energies. We have commitments and we see that for decades. And we see that in Brazil, business case to do that has been deteriorating a little bit, although it also makes sense with the models of high production, but it's a real challenge in our days for those things that were a strength of our country at some point and something that we consider that we had already has already been done. So I like to consider that in this point. And in a little bit, I'm going to talk about the competences. And what do we need looking through this rich level two, that it is long-term point that we have could be with the investments for the energy offered, the renewable energy offer to be fulfilling this demand. So this means more investment in generation and for those that distribute, that increase the resilience in the local places, but also for the grants volume. So I believe that is very important that Daniel talked at the beginning, that keep investing the networks of transmission, distribution for this sector can deal with the new challenges of climate uncertainty and also to get better the energy of that we call batteries, uh, electric vehicles. And what is going to happen if we don't have this evolution of regulation, planning, and investments together with this high demand of AI by electrification? It could be that energy would be more expensive, or even though can with maybe not have this energy. So I believe that it is important to get this to talk about the decarbonization in Brazil. And obviously, when we summarize this in this important point, what are they? Regulatory security and methodology for the function of the sector, to get concrete plans of expansion to avoid any problems ahead. And the third point, digitalization of the distribution network for them to regain resilience. And they have opportunity of work in green skills. We have the pleasure of leading this front of green jobs, systemic supporters with the great work, evidence that in Brazil has, of course, a lot of those jobs because Brazil is a reference of renewable energy, but there are space for more. So there is a social, economical opportunity ahead of us that is very important. I could expand this analysis that is about the second level reach, they compared to this the first level reach, like electrification, the natural gas utilizations. We are close to a lot of industries that are doing this migration for the natural gas, is getting more economy on that, about 10%. It's very good for the competitive of the industry in Brazil, and we celebrate that. And we believe that we have an opportunity here to get together here. The volunteer policy and the biogas, that is very a resource that we have a lot in Brazil, and to get that together with the financial, that is very good. Thank you very much, Albert. Thank you very much that we don't have a lot of time. I like to thank all of you and pass the floor for Musa to do his own remarks and talk about the future. Thank you, Moniz. Just we have a role that I'm gonna talk about SB Cup and what United sent us that is influence the public policies, and nothing better than examples. When you said Moniz, and who is learning during time as the private sector, they have to organize to show the way. This is, and when we look a little bit about the evolution, when we see here on the board, SB Cup was born in B20. It was a process that it was in the well done. We copied the model of B20 for COP, and through the way, what we noticed that B20 different from COP, the topics of between the B20 are not still. When it changed for the country, the country that is host adopted the practice for the last country, but the topics they lost in a way, and other topics appears. So COP is different from that. That is why we have the need and understanding to evolve with the design of the COP. The SB COP is an evolution from B20. We are treating as the future SB COP with a global design. We're going to have topics that are going to be still through the COPs and other COPs. The host country, for an example, like here in Brazil, the topic forest and bioeconomy, there was more importance. When you go to Australia and Turkey, clearly in Turkey, as you see the video, circularity that is more relevant, is a more relevant topic. When you go to Australia, water is a more relevant topic. So the host countries, like when you move to Ethiopia, they are going to have the freedom to talk a little bit more about the topics from their own country, but other topics they have to continue. So we are designing a model when we pass to have a structure SB from SB Cup that is going to have more impact, it's going to be bigger, it's going to be more global. And I only have 3 slides. The next one I show you a little bit of what is the design from now. You have the structure of global SB Cup that is going to treat about, it's going to talk about topics that are not going to change or are going to change, but just a little bit. You're going to keep having the role of the local SB Cup, and you're going to have now with the leadership, because we have 3 countries, because we're going to have Brazil, Australia, and Turkey. When they're going to be the other country is going to be Turkey, Australia, and Ethiopia, and the other one is going to be Ethiopia within other country, as happened with the champions. And the SP Cup is going to be responsible to take care about fewer topics. There's going to be they're going to be talked about for the whole year. So local SB Cup is going to repeat the success in Brazil. They're going to have the topics. There are the central topics. Those are just examples. We are not concluded. You see SB Cup, the local one, we're gonna talk about carbon transition of the fossil fuels, decarbonization technologies, decarbonization technology, position paper. We're gonna use the CNEs all around the world to influence the local policies. And the other hand, the SB Cup, the local one we're gonna have here, the names are gonna change. We're gonna align with the global action agenda and exactly how it was in Brazil. We're gonna have the private sector. The CEO is gonna invite the, we present the success case. What we have to expect from the SB Cup is a repetition of the success in Brazil, adding those priority topics that are gonna be treated through the whole year. And I'm gonna show you here this next slide. That is our activities during the year. If you look, we have a lot of details, but there are some things that I wanted to highlight. We're not looking just the climate forums that is in climate week in London, New York, We are going to the Sarah Week that is going to be in Houston. That is the biggest energy forum in the world. We are going to move on in Germany. So we're positioned as Big Cup, not only in the discussions that happen specific about the climate that attract people from the climate, but other different forums too. Of course, we're going to focus on the climate matters, but other important ones. We have a different chronogram, different from last year. We advanced the consultant that we have last year's as Muniz thank us, all of us. I like to thank each one of you once again. We're gonna have PMG that we got in content to participate. So it's going to keep the same process with the help of the consultants, with the detailed work on which one of the systems, and the delivers are going to increase. So Muniz, this is the design. I'd like to get this opportunity. I know that it's a lot of people to thank. I know we have the frustration to say that we'd like to do it better. But everybody from CNI did an incredible work, so I like to thank all of them, the consultants, tool system, and the people from McKinsey, BCG, EPEN, everybody that helped in this process. It was a huge work, and we are very proud of that. It's like our baby, and it's growing, and we are gonna take care to keep growing and be gigantic, because it's going to be very important. I always mention that it was the first time in my career that I left the private sectors to do a pro bono work, and my daughters are very proud of me right now from the work that I've done, and this one is the most important for them. So thank you very much for this work. Let's go and keep this and do a great job in the COP31. Thank you very much. A round of applause for you. It's for you to thank everybody. This is very important. We're going to have only one more point. I'm going to be very restricted with time, only 2 minutes for each one of you for you have your final remarks. And before that, thank your presentation shows us that you have a governance and a clear agenda of the roadmap for us to bright the future. So I'd like to pass the floor for Swelma for her final remarks. I'm going to be very restrict with the 2 minutes, okay? Well, before everything else, thank you very much. I'd like to let the list of works in these final remarks that we can continue this agenda of the regenerative agriculture and the food topics, as Brazil have to keep leading this transformation with the for the producer with the center and the solution, not only as a problem. And my second message is about the carbon market, and as the carbon market in Brazil can bring solutions, financial solutions for the investments, for us to change for an economy of low carbon in the country. And also to conclude, I have to talk about my friends from the Votorantim and think about the bioeconomy agenda. It's a commitment of Brazil with the Amazon and the savanna and the protection of the forest, and is a way that Brazil can concrete this huge and powerful economical potential in the future. We have to talk about that. We have to get this opportunity, bioeconomy in the center, financial mechanisms that allowed this leap and this technological transformation. Thank you very much. Very precise. Thank you very much. And Matthew, 2 minutes. I'd like to take this opportunity and the inspiration that I have been listening with this initiative of SBCOP, remembering that we are in a geopolitical context that is very adverse, and that we cannot underestimate the changes that a small group of people can do. So we cannot lose focus on the power that we have in each one of us. The climate change is a consequence of a very the things that are in our lives, energetic system, food, transportation. So it requires transformer spirits and bold ones to change that. And I believe that Speak Up is an inspiration that I'm thankful to know and that I take with my life and work. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the participation of all of you. So let's go to the next panel. We thank the participation of the panelists and the director, Roberto Muniz, for the moderation. Let's keep on with our program. Let's start with the second panel with the role of the industry in post-COP. And we invited for the panel the president of the Commission of Green Hydrogen, Federal Deputy Arnoldo Jardim. The president of the Federation of the Industry of the State of Rondônia of the Amazon Plus 21 Institute and of the Sustainable Investment Facility, the vice president of CNI, Marcelo Tomé. The president of the Environmental Council of the Federation of Industry of the State of Pará, Derek Pantoja. The partner for strategy and sustainability at Deloitte Brazil, Maria Emilia Pérez. And to moderate this panel, I'd like to invite the Superintendent of Environment and Sustainability of CNI and Davi Bontempo.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Just for your information, Congressman had to leave and will join us during the panel. And this way we'll begin already. We have a larger challenge, right, Marcelo? We are between the panel and lunch. We'll have a more dynamic panel. We all have our agendas and commitments, so we'll optimize time as much as we can. I'll begin thanking for the panelists for the presence. Maria Emilia, Marcelo, Derek, all of them participated pretty much in COP30, did a partnership, work with CNI, SBCOP, doing many deliveries that will carry on during the year of 2026. As mentioned, today we make a balance of COP30 as we began doing since the beginning, but we opened the perspective also for the works of 2026, bringing the novelties, innovations, agendas, as well mentioned by Ricardo Mussa from GSB to bring these working topics at the global level and also maintain all the unfoldings at the Brazil and local levels in the case of Australia and Turkey. And this way, of course, we have been mapping with all the industry sector the most relevant topics. It's a work that CNI doesn't do alone, does jointly with you. So the idea is that we have this work articulated with all the industry sectors, so along the year we can have this work convergency and use the best way possible the Ferrari Musa mentioned, but always with the idea of promoting, articulating, and contemplating all the topics the industry sector sees as competitiveness factors. We can't dissociate sustainability from the competitiveness agenda. We all Also, the geopolitical context was mentioned. Of course, we faced challenges. Last year wasn't different. This year we begin with other challenges involving energy safety, energy security, or energy safety. An agenda debated pretty much in the past, carries on this year, but surely will work to consider all the context the best way possible. But I'd like to begin our talk with President Marcelo Tomé. The President has been working upon an agenda with a special special dedication to the Amazon region, and another factor that also contemplates how to do so before an agenda placed since 92 till COP30 being an implementation agenda, but how the Amazon Institute sees as well as facility can be a platform for solutions for all these demands, all these agendas that have been appearing along our pathway, Marcelo. So I'd like you to tell us about this role and the opportunity we have making use of all this cooperative base we have today. Thank you for the question. Good morning, good afternoon. It's very hard to compete with lunch at this hour, but let's try to speed up. I greet Maria Emilia, Derek, counselor at COEMAS, right, Derek? It's evident we have an advancement of the agenda in Brazil since ECO 92 and finishing COP30, the awareness of the private sector in the climate, nature, and people's agendas, because we can't forget that on the other side there are people involved in the whole process, be by facing poverty, be for the generation of good jobs and income. Anyhow, I'd say the performance of the Amazon Institute as well as facility investments has the goal of once understanding the premises that brought us here, be public policies or even the effort from the private sector. And here I will allow myself to talk about the Amazon region side that allowed us to produce. I don't know how many of you know the Amazon region reality, but it's a territory. Just talking about the legal Amazon region that has about 30 million Brazilians, 44% of these peoples registered in the single registry, means all development policy implemented or guided towards the region failed, because almost half of that population depends on social programs to subsist, to survive. And that's what we're facing. We're facing trying to fulfill the gaps of public policies and of the effort from the private sector. So effectively, we are able to produce a new economy in the Amazon region that is sustainable, obtained or developed from the standing point of the standing forest, so to say. So the statement of the standing forest, even if it's a consensus, can't be a prison in the sense we must simply preserve the forest. That's part or one of the main premises that brought us here, that imposes to the region secular delays in infrastructure, absence of jobs, and maybe one of the main things we must face and tackle in the short term, which is the economic destination of the Amazon territory. Because in a matrix or in a simple overlapping of indicators where I have the action of companies with the formal economic activity, I have much less intensity of legal and crime activity. So I want to state that the agenda for preservation of the Amazon region and of facing deforestation, illegality, expansion of organized crime in the region is the expansion of economic activity. So we need to break this paradigm, shift this paradigm that brought us here, in the sense the Amazon region must be simply preserved because it's the Amazon forest. First, because there are many Amazon forests. So I have the forest Amazon, I have the urban Amazon, I have the converted productive Amazon region, and the Amazon region in exposure to the illegalities and organized crime. So that frontier is the most delicate ones that need the public-private consortium for absolutely innovative actions so we can regain control over that territory. That's providing destination to formal, regular economic activity. So it goes by a review of regulatory environment, goes by a series of actions that we have the ability of doing, promoting or sensibilizing local governments, even the federal government or administration, so the structural conditions are posed so this new economy becomes real. So in a straightforward manner, facility investments is blended finance institutions that wants to join government action, philanthropy, multilaterals that has huge difficulty of landing in the Amazon territory first because of the risks the Amazon itself offers to any investor, be by lack of knowledge, be by absence of land regulations, integrity or completeness of projects, a series of questions that impact over the feasibility of each one of these projects. And we operate at a technical assistant robust agenda to fulfill the gaps of these projects so they have economic feasibility and can access trading instruments in the future. That is for the Amazon region or any other agenda where we want to unleash capital, guide risk towards innovation that creates value, that has an official invoice being issued. Because another shocking data is that over the last year, 70% of all the investment in innovation in the Amazon region became dust, didn't produce any effect, didn't generate economy, didn't open one new job vacancy. So re-guide capital towards effective projects for economic development, obviously under the premises of a new economy, a sustainable economy, a decarbonizing and green economy that recognizes the economic potential of the Amazon biome and transforms that into business. That is the role of the Amazon 21 Institute, and that may be the best contribution we can provide in partnership with governments and companies, re-guiding that ecosystem so effectively we're able to establish new productive chains in the Amazon region. Thank you, Marcelo. I think it's important to understand effectively the role of facility, the role of the Amazon Plus 21 Institute. Surely over the last round, that was more dynamic. In the next round, that will be more dynamic. Marcelo will be able to talk about these projects. In the sense, the resources exist when you go to the financial, but we are lacking some projects. So we solve on one side, and we also solve on the side of who is going to lend that financial resource. So in the second round, Marcelo will explain what projects these are, and we surely can connect with many goals of you who are here with us. But bringing Derek to our talk, I'd like Derek to thank you on your behalf, President Alex, for all the support he provided during COP30, all the infrastructure, all the work, the teamwork of the Federation from the state of Pará, and this way making it feasible, providing relevant strong structures so CNI and SBCOP could act in the Belém environment. So we always talked a lot with the partners regarding the infrastructure we could use in jointly with FEP. So I bring my thank you. Please send this thank you very much to President Alex. So I'd like to tell you about the COP Plus agenda. Here we are, as previously said, in a moment of balance, of analysis and perspective. So feel free to do all that rescue about the COP Plus journey and what are the next steps of this initiative within the Federation of the Industries of the state of Pará. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to greet the panel and say it's a pleasure to participate here with you, President Marcelo, Davi, Maria Emilia. Unfortunately, President Alex couldn't be here, is an agenda abroad, but within that moment of balance that Davi mentions, I'd like to say as a resident from Belém that it was a pleasure to hear so many strong speeches, important speeches that we really feared a lot before the COP30 was held effectively, and that today being able to apart from all the difficulties we had, the balance, the results are extremely positive. Secretary Anna Tony brought practical results within the formal agenda, but beyond this, we had many informal, non-formal results that will carry on providing results, bringing a little bit of that balance we do as a Federation of the Industries. We had the opportunity of developing the COP Plus journey last year. There are some participants here that could integrate the working groups. We had 10 working groups, and at the end of that, you think of the aftermath, what comes after the results. So first, we had a pretty robust document drafted and that brings guidelines, pathways for decarbonization of the industry. We had advancements in the sense of maturing of the industries within the participation within the local context. We had a search for industry from industries that are looking for more advancements, symbiosis, and the ones that want to participate and join. And the moment we had bringing global climate agenda to debate within the Amazon region in Belém city in the state of Pará, we see this as an intangible asset, and the main challenge we see, Davi, is to transform that asset into competitive advantages within a formal structure. And we realized the first step was this, which is this major collective construction that brings the guidelines for decarbonization of the industry effectively. But we had next steps discussed here today. Many speeches brought that. Marcelo brought many fundamental aspects when we talk about the Amazon region that we need now to work upon issues of the regulatory framework. We had climate plan that has to be worked upon in the regional context, bring the side, the Amazon side, and we need to approach financing also, as Marcelo also mentioned. We need all that funding discourse to be turned into practical process, accessible credit lines, do innovation, and beyond this, we obviously need research and development. How can we transform all that into the day-to-day work within that internalization of the industries for the continuity of the processes? And part of the results, David, of the journey that appeared as working groups were internalized by the Federation through programs that will be permanent, that intend to carry on working jointly with the industry. So in the field of circular economy, exclusively, we also I highlight one of the programs we intend to remain with, which is tackling deforestation with direct action from the industries, doing that role within the private areas, contributing with this major challenge, which is to contain the deforestation anomaly. Thank you. Thank you, Derek, for the explanation. I now give the floor to Maria Emilia. For the ones who don't know, Maria Emilia helped coordinating the group of sustainable and resilient cities, so an agenda that was very much of Brazil, with the participation of sanitation companies. I think it was a singular modus operandi, and we learned jointly to develop. And how did this happen? Because, as you mentioned previously, local SB COP remains, so many questions are asked in the sense of understanding how that dynamic was developed, which were the deliveries, which were the difficulties. But Maria Emilia also drafted a document called Legacy, so consequently that document also became a reference for work closure and in this environment. So I'll give her the floor so she can explain the work done and also the importance of that document at the end of our journey in 2025 in SB COP. Thank you, Davi, but I can't avoid thanking Marcelo Tomé, also Alex, represented by Derek. They were major partners, and Ricardo Mussa, who I see that opportunity that Amib, Ricardo, Marcelo, David, and Alex gave me jointly with Roberto Muniz and Menin, who was the leader of Sustainable Cities. It's a single experience, unique experience. After SBCOP, after we expand knowledge, it's very hard to come back to the same place, and that's the most fantastic thing. I'll bring a little bit of what everyone said, but with the narrative of how this work was done and what was the impact. First, at that moment, we understood we were in a delicate geopolitical moment, and it's funny seeing how the perspective changes. We believed the moment was complex enough, and today we see it's not. There's nothing so bad that can't get worse. So we are in a more complex moment, but I like to look at complexity under the perspective of opportunity, and then a look from Brazil and how we have a standing point in this. It was a very complex moment where we needed and could show technical competence in extremely complex and robust topics. Another point that was fantastic for me was Itamaraty, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, our political diplomatic articulation. It was an experience, and Brazil is recognized by that. Us as Deloitte led COP in Azerbaijan, leading all the negotiation part. Now in Turkey, we're doing the same thing. Deloitte is leading all the negotiation part in Turkey for the COP, and I was questioned a lot. Wow, Maria, why we're not leading in Brazil? And my response was we have a diplomatic corps that is excellent with incredible negotiators, and we don't need to do that in Brazil. And they said, you won't need in Brazil. But anyhow, it was interesting, but we were able to bring that. Another point was a legitimate narrative about development, climate, and inclusion. For happening in the Amazon region itself, we couldn't have a different narrative for that, but inclusion was something that drew my attention. I think many of you participated in other COPs, so inclusion and effective participation of the private sector that was work from SB COP was also differential, and also connecting to what Davi asked me was a differential in the development of this work the whole time. And I'll bring you some points I see for the future. We have still difficulty of understanding the need of the others. So regardless of our religion, there's a guy up there, or women or guys, that are trying to show us how the game is played. I think we came back to the earth and didn't read the manual of the game, and we work collaboratively. Human beings need each other. That's for everything. We can't listen to others yet. We go to negotiation tables, often in the theory of negotiation. Sometimes there are debates, but in practice, it's very hard. And what we did in SBCOP was exactly to bring the perspective of the private sector, bring the debates jointly among the companies to assure an integrated vision of the value chain. So that is extremely innovative. For the most, we might think, no, that's easy to happen. No, CNI knows it well, leads that agenda in the private sector, but the players have the same sector on behalf of an impact agenda, social, economical impact that brings to the discussion other perspectives. We have the public perspective, public policies. I say a lot. You go into a company, often you have the vision of the strategy, you have the vision of the commercial, the trading part, financial, the relationship with government, and new businesses and operations. But not always, not even inside the same company, we can converge for a single agenda. It seems the areas are working isolatedly. Imagine when we bring that to the private sector. So I'd like to say SBCOP was a place of inclusion and empathy.
But it is a pragmatic of the business. What Davi already said, we have the technical groups where we did this selection of cases, pragmatical cases, and these collaborations allowed us and will keep allowing the private sector can have this position with the public sector, bringing public policies that made us accelerate this agenda. Natoma talked a lot. We have to work with acceleration and the pragmatism that we can have a business look. And after COP, I felt that a lot, and I heard people saying that, well, we're not unengaged. It's not cold yet. No, I believe that is the opposite. What we have now are the agendas of generation of business and a social economic impact that happens from now on. And because of that, it's necessary that this agenda keep on, and that we not only have this point of view, but this was very powerful for the impact of the SB COP in a global level, and we can keep on leading, and we acknowledge about that not only on the diplomatic perspective, but on the during with the together with the NCNN, see that how we are capable to lead in this agenda. And only to quote over here, we know that the private sector have to engage and to have to mature. This conversation during this year was incredible, the convergence of those agenda. And a lot of times we believe that we have a direct perspective. My business is different, but we sit and talk and listen, we have the common points, and this is value. Once we understand that is we have this common ground, the direction, we go in the same direction, and that the potential of Brazil, it's very easier to keep going. And we also talked about the financial part, and we need effectively to step aside of this agenda. We have to talk. Of course, it's necessary, but it's a pragmatism agenda. As we have to go on with this one, that we look and see that we take financial viability, and we talked about the net positive impact. Is not take aside the social economic impact, but also look to sustainability for the energy transition as an economic agenda also. And at this moment is a very important moment for this to happen, with all of those war and situation and in the world happening, how we navigate. We know that we have those critical minerals and clean energy. So once again, we said that in Brazil we have a lot of things going on, and we have to be prepared. And I believe that we are more prepared for these discussions and have this kind of topic on the table. Thank you very much. Tapels, thank you very much, Maria Emilia. So now we're gonna have 1.5 minutes, at most 2 minutes, to conclude with final remarks. Marcelo. I was about to talk about some projects, but I have to talk very fast now. A project, just to show you how this operates in our territory. A public bank, Caixa Econômica, decided to understand how the decarbonizate the civil construction in Amazon, invite us to write a project of a new value chain to apply in some constructions for social interest habitations. So we have Sabic present here of the Environment Commission. We have the Knuckle of Woods of USP, Caixa, the bank that is pushing forward this agenda, and because this is the risk phase, to study and new technologies, to see that this apply to the territory, and the people that are going to use will behave in the right way, showing this viability of the application of the wood for the habitations, for the construction in the Amazons, because it's not only about residences, it can be to any construction. Caixa decide to promote a meaningful change that in the North region, Minha Casa Minha Vida program will be with this wood. And that means that we work to the demand, and through that we activated the whole value chain since the primary sector, and connect to new other projects. That is a group of actions that we call Fundo Geral Mais Verde, that is work poverty through generative programs, generations, and decarbonization. 100% of those rural places has environmental passive. This is a tragedy that in the way that you regulate that, it gets out of the game because it doesn't access any more resources. Well, one of the focus of the Grupo Rural Mais Verde is to end up with these rural areas of the Amazons, understand the business that can happen through that identity, that what they have, the capability of products, and escalate and include in a value chain these productions, this community, generating economy, incomes, and dignity to the people. In the same way, we have another program with the fishing, a pilot project that we have with the border of Brazil and Bolivia. A fisherman has, they have 20,000 reais per month. 80% is through fossil fuels. In with him, only 2,000. As the community that he live, it doesn't have any electric energy. They have the fuel for that, and that impacts the loss of 60 or 70% of the product that he fish. So it takes out the fossil fuels from the Amazons. It means that we are going to multiply the income of the fisher doing the same thing that he does, and of course include and reallocate this production in a value chain in other business. So this is the work that we are trying to do by the Institute Amazon. By facilities sustainable, this can be replied for any sector of Brazil and area of Brazil. So we left this invitation for you, and we are available for you. So go ahead, Derek. And just to conclude and try to keep on my time, I'd like to say that for us, the evaluation that we have from COP30 is that it wasn't the start point, it was a end point, and we have a lot of possibilities right now that we can see with the future that is promising. When we talk about Amazon, Marcelo talked really well about it. We have huge challenges that we have to face it, and structural problems, even about regulations or environmental or logistics, funding investments has to be done that for us to get to transform to this discussion of bioeconomy into an industrial economy, and we have to keep facing those challenges. And besides that, we have to continue these internal constructions of industry appropriation that we can see the product within this agenda and connect the challenges with the global challenges, so we can effective have an industrial policies in the Amazons that keep the forests and produce, respecting the 30 million Brazilians that live in Amazon. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to thank you and highlight the need and importance that we engage with this agenda together with the private sector. This has made available the discussion, this articulation that we can have our positions within the public policies in a way that we can accelerate our business. And I believe this is a unique opportunity and we cannot waste it. A lot of times we have a new regulations and we have these opportunities to have positions and bring our point of view, and this house is the place for that. And we have the SPCOP even more present each day, the Tomé in the leadership. So we don't have to waste this opportunity to accelerate this agenda and discuss in a pragmatic way. We know that we have those critical minerals, fossil fuels, things that we talk each day, but we have to have an action directed for that for us to concrete. Well, unfortunately, the congressman couldn't come. He was supposed to attend a meeting with the president of the Congress, and we know that this is a thing that happens. This but I really liked him to be here to talk about the roadmap. Yesterday we were in an event by Toyota, and he could present the work that he's doing about the biofuels, and those who saw that in the COP and the alternatives, the technological routes connecting with this agenda of energetic transitions. And we know that this is going to be a very busy agenda into 2026. A lot of forums are going to talk about that. Hanover presented here is the biggest energy forum in the world, so CNI probably would take that and for solutions. And of course, we're gonna work through SBCOP and straighten this relationship with the collision of the carbon market by these congeners and all of the exits that is going to happen by SBCOP and CNI. And for those who doesn't know, the carbon market is in implementation now, is the part of governance methodology and how it's going to be regulated. Those so it's going to be a very broad agenda and coordinated by the Minister of Finance and the industrial sector, especially CNI, and for us to involve all of the segments, to all of the sector, that together we can build the better solutions that we have listed in the bill that were approved in the Congress. So how does that connection in international level, and that's why we have as a first point on the SBCOP agenda, and especially to continue and going on in a national level and connecting with the more mature markets that most of you know and that for sure are going to work together with us. So we have to now. I'd like to thank you all to conclude this event. I'd like to say some priorities by thanking the team of superintendents of environment and sustainability. It's not easy to bear all of this structure. We see the delivers, but we don't have the awareness of the work that it should be that must have been done for behind the curtains. So it's a work of all of the team, all of the fields, the finance, journalism, accountability, cabinets, international. I saw Fernando here that helped us a lot, and the companies, the partners that not only contribute but involved in all of the work. It were around 670 cases prioritized, and the companies and all of you that are present here today, thank you for the support, and that wants for that the partnership keep on going 2026 and concluding and counting with the participation of all of you. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the panelists to contribute with this debate and this Davi Tempo for the conduction of this panel and all of the work of this area. We'd like to thank the participation of all of you, and for those who were virtually with us, I'd like to ask you that for those who use the devices for translation, take it back on the same place that you take it in the entrance of the auditorium. And I'd like to thank you for a brunch that is going to be served in the foyer. Thank you very much for the participation. Have a wonderful afternoon.